When you're out camping, the last thing you want is to be woken up by wildlife. But when we visited Olympic National Park, something wild made it into our trailer. You're listening to Travel FOMO, a podcast for people self-diagnosed with wanderlust. Welcome to the Travel FOMO podcast. We're in the middle of season 9, telling you all about our time camping out in the wild in our RV with our dog Maggie. We're just making it back from the holidays, so we took a little break over the holidays, and we're coming back.
Happy New Year.
Hillary was gifted sickness for Christmas.
Yes, I sound a little different than normal.
So just so that everyone knows, she did not pick up a 2-pack-a-day habit. It's just a little sniffles and snuffles that she's going through right now. So she's going to sound a little gravelly for this one.
Yeah, a little froggy. Oh my gosh. It sounds even worse when I'm in a microphone. I'm like, oh no, this sounds way worse than I thought, but that's okay. I hope everyone had happy holidays. We got to spend time with family. It was so nice to really refresh. It's not a really refreshing time of year for you though. Your work is a little different. You had to work hardcore.
Yes. Yeah. I'm project management where a lot of stuff goes live on January the 1st. So a lot of work going on. But it's all good. Holidays were good, and New Year, same me, because we weren't the problem.
Oh yeah. So Olympic National Park. Oh my gosh, that is definitely where the outdoors came in.
Yes.
And what we mean by that is mice. Mice infested our Airstream. And in this episode, we're going to tell you about how it went down because it was super dramatic. And from my memory, oh my gosh, it was intense. Our dog Maggie flipped out over it. Mm-hmm. She hated the idea that somebody is in the RV with us. There were sleepless nights by all.
Now, you had worried a lot about bears.
Mm-hmm.
And bears coming in to our trailer and robbing us or whatever it was you were worried about. Were you at any point worried about mice?
I really wasn't. I don't think.
Until here.
Until we heard them, but we will get into that shortly. Why don't you tell everybody a little bit about Olympic National Park? It's such a cool park.
It is really cool. It is in the very tippity top of the country, so the far northwest, really as far northwest as you can go in America. It's nearly 1 million acres, and it's really cool. I think if it were more conveniently located, a lot of people would go to it and you would hear tons about it. I mean, you kind of hear about Olympic a lot anyway because it is really close to Seattle, but not nearly as much as I think if it were more accessible. Mm-hmm. Everyone would just go on and on about it because it's so different. The park has 3 different sort of ecosystems. So it has forests. There are rainforests that get 12 feet of rain a year. Sol Duc Falls is in there. It's one of the most photographed falls in all of the Northwest. So really beautiful rainforests that you can hike through. We'll talk a little bit about those. There's ocean. So there's 73 miles of coastline in Olympic National Park. So you get this exposure to the ocean, which is not very common for what most people think of in a national park.
Yeah.
The stuff we saw there was really cool. We'll talk about that a little bit as well. And then you also have mountain ranges like Hurricane Ridge is a place you can go in Olympic National Park. You see the Olympic Mountain Range, beautiful, huge mountains. And so it's just so diverse and so different from anything else. I thought that was really cool that you get to experience so much all in one place.
Yeah. Loved the 3 diverse pieces of it too, like the forest, the ocean, the mountains. Gosh, love that. Yeah. And then we found out it was a UNESCO World Heritage Site too, which, surprise. We love those.
Yeah. And can't go wrong with UNESCO World Heritage.
Yeah. Well, and one of the most talked about parts of the park that we kept hearing so much about was Hoh Rainforest. Mm-hmm. And it was kind of our first hike in the park too. We did about 5 miles there, and the rainforest, it's pretty easy miles too. You're just kind of walking over huge stumps of trees, and
Yeah,
beautiful scenery.
it was nice and flat, especially having come from a lot of like mountainous parks that we've been in
Yeah.
prior, where you're doing these big, like kind of hard hikes.
Mm-hmm.
A nice flat hike along this river really
Yeah.
was really, really nice.
Yeah, yeah. And I will say it was like a 2 hour drive. Like we stayed as close
Yeah.
as we could to the park,
Hmm.
and it was still like a 2 hour drive to get into the Hoh National Rainforest. That was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
But it's a big park.
It's a really big park and really spread out, the different like kind of chunks of it. And so it does take a while to get there. In fact, we ran across someone that was in a real hurry to get
That's
to where they
right.
were going. On our way to hike the Hoh Rainforest, we saw a car that had been flipped over. So we're driving in. It's really early in the morning, and we come up upon all these cars that are kind of stopped. And in national parks, if you see a bunch of people that are stopped, they're usually taking pictures of like a bear or a big elk or
Yeah,
something like that.
wildlife.
Right. And I was in the national park mindset. And so I was like, oh, I wonder kind of what it is. And this train of cars sort of went around a bend, right around a
Yeah.
curve. So I parked the truck and I got out and I was like, I'm just going to walk up here and see what it is. And this guy had flipped his car, and it was some kind of fancy sports car. And you could see where he had been going and was probably driving way too fast, went off the road just a little bit and hit a stump, and he hit it just right and it just flipped the car. Fortunately, he was fine. Everybody was fine. And people were kind of gathered around, and really like at that point, people were like, okay, everybody's good. He had called a tow truck, and I think someone else had called the police when they first came upon it because it looked really bad. I mean, the
Yeah.
car's sitting there upside down.
Yeah.
And so we're kind of sitting in this line, and the guy actually comes up to us and is like, hey, do you have any chains or anything in your truck? Because we were the only ones like with a big truck. And I was like, no, like what's up? And he was like, well, I was hoping that maybe we could get it flipped back over. And
Before
I
the
was
cops
like,
get there.
sorry, buddy. Like you're gonna have to own this.
Yeah.
Like I'm not helping you flip your car over. And I don't know if it was granddad's car and he didn't want like the cops to show up with the car upside down or what, but I had to disappoint him on that one, and we just continued on our way.
That was wild. Like, because, I mean, you had to be going slow enough. I'm sure the speed limit was no more than 35 miles an hour.
Right.
So this idea that somebody could have flipped their car was really mind-blowing.
Yeah.
It just felt really off. The whole thing felt off.
I think that's kind of what was going on too, is he realized that like he's going to get in trouble for this because he clearly was doing something he shouldn't have been doing, driving way too fast.
Yeah, that was a no-go, not good.
But we got to hike the Hall of Mosses.
Yeah.
It was a really popular trail there. Again, a really easy trail, and there were a lot of kids on it, a lot of families on it, but really cool stuff that you can really kind of only see there as far as what we saw in North America, as far as all the ferns and the moss and the huge trees. And that led us to the Hoh River Trail that Hillary talked about. It's a really, really cool area. And you can do a ton of hiking there, or you can do just a little bit, which was nice too.
Yeah. There are cougars there, by the way. So I was like,
something
on the
else for
lookout.
Hillary to worry about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was a little worried, but we didn't see any. It was fine. But the Hall of Mosses was really cool because it just looks creepy. In fact, the whole thing felt like a movie.
Mm-hmm.
Like, to me, it really felt like we were in Jurassic Park, or like that scene in Star Wars with the little, what are the little guys?
Yeah, what are they? Yeah. Well, let's hear whatever name you make up for them.
No, I don't know the name of them. The little fur balls that run around. It felt like that. And then what started coming to mind was Twilight. And lo and behold, fun fact, I looked it up, and the Twilight series was actually filmed on the Olympic Peninsula. It was actually in the town, parts of it were even in the town of Forks, which we did end up driving through. And it was really funny. At the time, we didn't know that, but we did see this vampire meter
Right.
And like, in case you're wondering, like the vampire danger level while we were there was very high.
Very high.
Another thing I was worried about, but we made it out alive. But I just thought that was really fun, and it kind of made me want to go back and watch the Twilight movies because, like, it's just beautiful. I mean, it really is beautiful. And I remember wondering, where did they film this? Because it was so pretty. But yeah, Olympic.
I will say that like Olympic stuck with me as a place. Like when you think back, you're like, what's your favorite? Like it always like pops into my mind just because of how cool it was to see all that and just how beautiful it all is.
Yeah.
And, you know, not just the rainforest, but also like the ocean. Like we mentioned earlier, we went to Rialto Beach and it was like nothing that I'd ever seen before. And felt really special because it's this place where essentially the forest meets the ocean. And I had never experienced that before. I don't even think I'd necessarily seen much footage or pictures of it before. But the forest is right there, these huge tall trees, and then this sort of like rocky beach into the ocean, and all of this driftwood, just tons and tons of driftwood that has like been beaten up and tossed around by the sea and tossed back up onto the beach. So you have like the water running into these rocks, into these dead trees that are just massive piles of dead trees right into the forest. And you just see so much of the force of nature all in one spot. All this stuff, it makes you feel really sort of small.
Yeah.
And to me, I was like, wow, we try so much to control life, and we try so much to be like, I can manage it, and I can do what I want to do and make what I want to happen. But then you see something like that and you're reminded like there's so much that I just have no control over.
Yeah.
I can't do anything about. And that is like somehow freeing a little bit. When you can recognize there's only so much I can do, and I can control what I can control, but the rest, it's just going to be what it is. And I really felt that there. And I think that's really kind of one of the magical things about nature and national parks is you do confront yourself with something that you've never seen before that's really beautiful, and it sort of stirs up feelings in you and why people like it so much. And so I think if you haven't been and you haven't exerted yourself enough to like go to a place that's sort of untouched by man, you're really sort of missing out. And I think that's why people do it. And I just really thought that Rialto Beach was just crazy and blew my mind a little bit.
Yeah, it was definitely one of my favorite spots in the park. I loved, like you mentioned the driftwood, but I just want to like maybe put a megaphone to something that you said. Like it's massive pieces of driftwood. Like we're talking like huge trees that have been not torn apart into a bunch of little pieces. They are intact and they have been slammed back up onto this beach, and they are massive. Nobody's moving them. They are massive. And that was just, and they're piled up like somebody just kind of like dropped a pile of toothpicks. It's crazy to think, you know, the force behind that, like you were saying. So just wanted to reiterate that. And like you said, everything was just so big. I remember us parking and we're like, oh, we'll just walk down the beach.
Mm-hmm.
And we walked and we walked and we walked for a solid hour and still didn't get to the point that we thought we were going to get to. It was mind blowing how long and big the beach was. And yeah, it was, and also just like, you've got like the seawater and like a little bit of fog, and it's just kind of got like this eeriness to it. But then also like a ton of contrast of colors, which I totally wasn't expecting to see, like white driftwood and green trees and a royal blue sky. And it was just all like pops of color. And then you've got like fogginess out there too. It was really cool pictures.
Yeah.
Cool footage, which you can see on YouTube.
Yeah. If you go check out YouTube, you'll see that. And there were little islands out there that you could see as well, which kind of gave it another like sort of mystical feel to it.
Yeah.
Like it was really cool.
Yeah, yeah. There was also some dog-friendly options, which was nice for us because we had our dog Maggie with us.
Yep.
So we were always looking for dog-friendly opportunities. One of them was we did the Spruce Railroad Trail, and so that was a good one. It's really well paved. It's perfect for somebody who might have their kids in a stroller or something like that, or you've got your kids with a bike and you want to take them. We really liked the Spruce Railroad Trail. We actually met a dog owner along the way, and she was like, "Oh, I love taking my dog to this little patch, this little area over here." And she kind of pointed out a good little spot where we got to take Maggie to the water and let her dip her toes in the water, which was really fun. And then we also, the visitor center near Port Angeles, it has some little trails around it as well that are really good for they are options for if you've got your dog with you. So
Yeah, they've got a couple of little pet friendly trails, and they were really like just like half-mile loops.
yeah.
So really easy to do, be easy to do with kids. Like I think Maggie really liked getting to go do them, and they're just like little hills, not too tough, and really you kind of get to see a little bit of the ferns and stuff like that too.
Yeah, yeah. Well, then we stayed near Port Angeles at Elwha RV Park. Am I saying that right, you think? Elwha? ELWHA. It was really whimsical and woodsy. It was like really different, I have to say. Like, it was really different. And it was like we were pulling up into somebody's field that they had kind of transformed into an RV park is really what it was. And it was right by the Elwha River, which is kind of a big thing that they talk about a lot in the park. But I thought it was so interesting that they had all of these wooden chainsaw sculptures that they had built out of all of these tree stumps. And so it made it really kind of fun because you would walk around the park and you would see like, I don't know, you'd see a tree stump that they turned it into a bunch of mushrooms, or one was a bear, and all these different things. There was actually a ton of them. But I also loved that they had an herb and vegetable garden, and it was growing in the middle of the RV park, and guests were invited and encouraged to go into the garden and basically prune herbs if they wanted to, or they could take some of the vegetables. It was like such a nice little perk. I remember like we'd had like a garden in Dallas, like, and we lived like in Dallas proper, and it was kind of hard to like, you kind of had to use your whole lawn to like create a little garden, but it was really nice. And I like that kind of stuff. Like my mom's side of the family were really into gardens and stuff. So
just
for me,
so you know, if you give Hillary a sprig of fresh rosemary, you can do no wrong. You can do whatever you want, and she'll love you and say that you're the best ever. If you just like one sprig of fresh rosemary, that's all it takes.
Fresh herb will just go so far. Do you remember there were also wild blackberries that were growing in the fence right beside our Airstream?
Yeah.
Like, it was kind of crazy. There was like a bunch of like realistic, like, wild fruits and stuff. And that was all near Port Angeles, which, by the way, if you're driving through Port Angeles, which you probably are if you're going to Olympic National Park, you really need to stop by Frugal's drive-thru. They have burgers and shakes that are worth it.
Yeah, really good. Really good stuff. At night, like I think it was our second night that we were there in Olympic National Park, we had gone to bed and it was really nice. We had sat by the fire a little bit. We were worn out from hiking and doing all this stuff. And so we settle in for a nice little nap and wake up in the middle of the night to the sound of mice. Ugh. And I could hear them in our cabinet.
I'm surprised you heard them first. I'm really surprised.
Yeah. I woke up from the sound. Because we weren't in bear country anymore, I think you had let yourself like fully fall asleep for the first time in a couple months.
Yeah.
And Maggie just dead asleep. No help whatsoever. And I could hear them, and I sat up in bed, and then you were like, what is it? What? And I was like, just quiet, like just be quiet for a second. And you're like, what is it?
Yeah.
What is it?
Yeah.
You could hear them like in our pantry. So I was like, I think we have mice. So we get up, it's the middle of the night, moving around a trailer is not the easiest thing ever. So you're kind of like stumbling through the trailer and open up the pantries and find that like, oh yeah, they've been into some chips and like some crackers and stuff like that. And so, and into our trash under our sink. So then it's like, okay, we're bagging up all that stuff. The stuff that they hadn't gotten into, we either like we put in the microwave to try to lock away. We took the trash out, all this stuff, and we're like, okay, there's literally nothing for them to get into now. Hopefully they'll be gone. In the back of my mind, I am thinking about you and your reaction to mice and what I am facing if you are to see one of these.
If we don't handle this now. So true, because me and mice are not a good mix, for sure. And it's not because they're gross, because they are gross, but in college, okay, so myself and my first roommate, Jessica Flores, we had mice in our dorm room. And actually, everyone had mice in their dorm room. Just to be clear, it was new dorms built out beside a field, really. And so all of the doors faced the outside, like literally outside. So mice were coming in. And also, I just don't think they had sealed it up really well. But all that to be said, we may have had some candy and some things in our dorm room that wasn't helping. Just going to say. But so everybody, like girls on the first floor were waking up with mice poop in their hair. Like it was like a thing, and we were all like, oh my gosh, this is happening. And I was getting nervous, like hearing mice and stuff. And so this one night it had been like, I could hear a mouse going to town on some candy, like that was on the floor. And I was just like, oh my gosh, it was making me so nervous. And I eventually literally like went into somebody else's room because I couldn't handle it. And then that morning, I had been nervous all night long, couldn't sleep. And I come back to our room and I'm getting ready for class and I'm still a little on edge. And all of a sudden, it's been hours and hours of a nervous stomach. And all of a sudden, I see the mouse run across the room and I projectile vomit all over the place. I bet you guys weren't expecting that. But that's what happens whenever I see mice. I like literally just everything leaves me. And I literally got sick all over the room. I went outside and was sick all over the sidewalk, which I'm sure everyone really appreciated. But yeah, so like me and mice, I just can't handle it. I can't rest.
So the stakes were pretty high for me, as you just heard, because I knew the story. I knew like the predictable response. That day we went and we got some Irish Spring soap because I had read that they don't like the smell of it. And so I had like cut up pieces of that and put it sort of everywhere in the trailer. And
by the way, do you feel like that helps now that we've been through this?
I don't know.
I don't either.
I don't think that it does anything. We also bought canisters to keep our food in so it would be sealed up. We replaced the food that the mice had gotten into. We made sure to like not keep trash in the RV, so take out trash before we went to bed every night. And all of that, we were like, okay.
I turned the microwave into like a cupboard basically.
Right.
Because it was like completely sealed off, which was a good call.
Yeah. Yeah. That was a great place to keep like chips and bread and things like that. Or like put those in the microwave to keep them safe. And I really kind of thought like, okay, we've done quite a bit. Maybe this will work. There's nothing for them to have.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll be gone. So we go to bed the next night. Again, we've hiked. We've like sat by the campfire. Everything's been great. And no, they're not gone. They're back. And this time it was before we fell asleep. Maggie could hear them. She was going crazy.
Yeah.
I think she could probably smell them at that point. She could hear them over the sound of like Netflix playing. She starts freaking out. We turn off Netflix and realize like oh, they're back again. Like they're all over the place. And the thing about RVs is you have different areas, like different cabinets. So you've got your kitchen cabinets, and then for us, like the pantry, and then the sofa, and all of these things have to have electricity to them. And so the wires are essentially run through tubes. Well, these tubes are basically just like super highways for mice to get from like one area of your RV to another one without having to come out in the open. And so that makes it even more difficult. And then you're just thinking, well, where else can they get? Clearly they can get to under the bed. Can they get on the bed?
And how did they get in?
Yeah.
That's what we were really struggling with.
Right. Like, we're like, how are they getting access at all? And is this going to be the rest of our life? Just hanging out with mice. And at that point, it was time for us to leave. We were headed to another place. And so we're like, well, maybe, hopefully,
they don't live here.
Right. Hopefully they're not like coming with us and staying with us.
Yeah.
Forever.
TBD, guys.
Yeah. You'll have to tune in next week to find out.
Where do we go next?
Next, we head to Portland, Oregon. We're going to Ainsworth State Park.
That's right. Yeah. Oh, yeah. You guys tune in because the story doesn't end here.
Yeah, a lot of controversy at Ainsworth State Park. There was a lot of things that went wrong there.
Oh my gosh. That's such a good one. I won't say, but it's hilarious. It's great. It's so great. Oh my gosh. Okay, so that's the next episode. And there's also some really gorgeous waterfalls along Ainsworth State Park. So it's like if you're going to Portland, you should definitely just drive outside the city and see them, spend a day out there.
Yeah, it was really great. And that state park was a really nice state park to stay in.
Really small, but really great. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
So what were your like kind of overall thoughts of Olympic?
Well, I think I like seaside national parks. You do too, because you really like not just Olympic, but also Acadia is one of your favorites. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I think that it's neat whenever you can be in a national park and also enjoying the ocean, really. So I love the variety. I will say trees dominate there.
Yes.
There's so much vegetation, and I think that's really cool. It's appealing. It's beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think everyone should see it at least once. It is like really far up there, like kind of hard to get to, but if you have the time and can make it up there, like it is just something else, something otherworldly that you just don't get a chance to see very often. And I definitely recommend going at least once to see Olympic.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, you guys, you can find us on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube. We're out there. There's a fun video that Jamin has put together on this, specifically on Olympic National Park. So you can see some of the things that we're talking about. And there is a lot of cool, like we were saying, there's like 3 different ecosystems to look at. Like it's really pretty. It's really something special. Yeah. So take a look out there on the YouTube video. And if you've been to Olympic and you've got some stories of your own, maybe we missed something and you want to make sure other people know about it, drop us a line. We've got a, what's it called? It's called an email account.
Email address.
I forgot. I'm very sick, guys. I can hardly think. You can email us at travelfomopodcast@gmail.com and tell us what you know about Olympic National Park so we can share with others. Tell us some crazy story that you had, or better yet, I would love it if one of you out there has a story about getting mice in your RV. I've got to hear that story. And please share it with us so we can share it with everybody else, because I mean, that's wild. Like it's crazy because you're in such tight quarters and you know that this living being is like right there, possibly near your head. Ugh. Crazy.
Yeah, you'll definitely want to stay tuned. So make sure that you are subscribed for wherever you watch and listen to find out about the mice and everything else that goes down. And if you could go out there and rate and review. If you could leave us a 5-star rating and write a little review of what you thought of the podcast, it helps other people find us, and we would really appreciate it as well.
That's right. Okay, guys, life is short.
Wonder well.